Mabuhay Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Dr. Philippines from Love Beyond the Sea. So occasionally I'd like to try to answer some relationship and love questions here on Love Beyond the Sea. And so the one for today is called, what is the definition of love in one word? Is that an easy question? What is the definition of love in one word? So before we go, just a reminder to please subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea. I found my love beyond the sea about 5 years ago when I married a Filipina. Very quickly, I've been learning to love her ever since, and I try to share what I have learned. And so these topics have interest to me because they deal with relationships. So what is the definition of love in one word? Well, I do have several examples I can share. So we'll take them one at a time. I think one would be sacrifice. I mean, you should be able to say that someone loves me or I love someone because of something. So I would say one word would be sacrifice, would be one way to define love, where you give something up for someone because, you know, we come into this world basically selfish people, and to be able to give something away of yourself, something that, well, hurts, I think would be an indication of the definition of love. If we give something that doesn't really affect us very much, it's giving something, but it's not really a sacrifice. I once heard somebody say, what do we do with these old coats? And someone said, well, let's just give these bad ones, to the Salvation Army or something. Well, they're not missing it. There's no sacrifice there in that giving. But I do think that when a man loves a woman, it doesn't even have to be in a romantic situation, there will be sacrifice. Somebody works a different shifts, or they sacrifice money that was for something else that they've been saving a long time. Whatever it is, they go a different direction than what they had planned for the good of somebody else. So sacrifice, I think, would be a way to define love in one word. A second way related to that would be selfless. Selfless. If you're going to have a good marriage to somebody, whether they're from the same country or not, same culture or not, you're going to have to be selfless, because the marriage is not going to be about you. It's going to be about each other. And I do think that it helps to put more emphasis on the other person than yourself. And if both people do that, that relationship is going to work out. I do think to be loving of someone, you have to be selfless. If somebody is only thinking about themselves, concerned with themselves, when they get married, that marriage will fail. So another way to describe love in one word, I would say, is selfless. For me, I just tell myself, been married now for almost 5 years, my marriage is all about my wife. I want to be good to her. I'm going to sacrifice for her, and I'm going to be selfless. It actually is a very liberating feeling to just kind of forget about what you want and what's good for you and invest in that other person. You'll have to try it and see. But I think that has helped my relationship with my wife, and it helps her to open up to what's good for me when I take the lead to be sacrificial and to be selfless with her. And the third way, or the third word I could use to describe love, would be giver. What is the definition of love in one word? I've mentioned sacrifice, I've mentioned selfless, and I could also mention give or giver. In fact, the first thing that comes to mind is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave. And actually, now I think about it, all three of these are in there. He gave. He didn't hold on to the only possible solution to man's fallen nature, their sin. He gave. He gave his only begotten Son, who was perfect and infinite. So that was a tremendous sacrifice. It was a selfless act of God as he gave his only begotten Son many times. And I've done a video on love before. It usually involves loss, sacrifice, giving. Now, those might not seem like very romantic words, but in my own experience, that's what love comes down to. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about the good that I can show another person. And it doesn't even have to involve love, but in marriage, romantic love, that's great. I want that too, I have that too. But for our relationship to last, I have to love her. And if somebody ever asks her someday, how do you know that Dr. Philippines loves you? I would hope she would say things like, well, because he sacrifices for me, he's unselfish, he's a giver to me. And, if she can say that I'm doing those things, then I would say that I'm doing a good job of loving her. So that's just a short thought for the day. What is the definition of love in one word? I would say sacrifice, selfless, and being a giver. So just something for you to think about. Some thoughts from Dr. Philippines today from the studios of Love Beyond the Sea.